Committee. Apologies for absence. Councillor Cousin has informed me that he may be late. I think everyone else is here. Yeah. Thank you. Do we, if he's late, do we have to accept these? Yes, we'll do it for formality. Yeah. Declarations of interest. Anything on the agenda that people want to? Thank you very much. Chairman's report. I haven't got anything specific to say with the items on the agenda. Public questions in accordance with standing order 20. Is it 20 or 22?
I think it's changed with the review from it was 22.
Thank you. Thank you. I something wondered about that. Finance officer.
None received, Chair.
Thank you. Minutes to confirm the minutes of the Corporate Policy and Finance Committee meeting held on 15th of June 2022 already circulated. Any comments on those minutes? Thank you. Everybody happy to accept those minutes?
I wasn't there, Chair, so I was just. Unfortunately, I got struck with the dreaded COVID.
Yes. Minutes of other meetings referred to this committee. Do you see the minutes of the Accounts and Risk Subcommittee held 12th July 2022? Councillor Turnbull.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to present the minutes of the meeting on the July 12th, is it? Yeah, 2002, and adoption of from noted by this committee.
Thank you. Take a vote on that. We just noted them.
Yeah, it's basically the dementia.
And can we also note the meeting of the dementia friendly Harpenden working party?
Yes, working party.
Party, yes, yes, yes. Councillor Flower, you were the only attendee. Any points?
No.
Thank you. We will note those. All right. Officers reports. One forward planner resolution tracker, finance officer.
Thank you, Chair. So everything on the resolution tracker has been marked as complete, including the grant that's been paid to Northampton Research. And just to note that the monitoring of that grant has been added to the March forward planner, just so we can bring forward the 6 month review of how the cafe scientific that they've been running is going. But they have to take any further questions.
I've seen that actually posted on social media to encourage people to attend. I have actually seen that. So the word topics I particularly wish to discuss, but you know, it's good. It's clearly there and running. Any other comments on the forward planner and resolution tracker? No. Thank you. So can we take the recommendation at 2.1 to note and approve the forward planner and note the resolution tracker? Is everyone happy with that? Thank you. Right. Next item. The budgetary control 2022-23. Finance officer.
Thank you, Chair. So the report reflects the financial position as at the end of September of this year. If I can draw your attention to Appendix A on page 18, we're currently showing a favourable variance of just over £10,000. The main variance is the large increase in insurance costs that we've seen this financial year, which has been offset by the vacant post in the Rangers team, which is reflected in the staff costs. And it's also been offset by the additional income that's been generated by the golf course. And there's more detail on the variances shown in the report on points 3.11 to 19. Just something else to note, that any of the applicable variances in the monitoring have been reflected in the budget setting for next year. But have to take any further questions.
Just, is the insurance one, the other contract 16 to
Yeah.
9?
Yes,
It's,
yes.
Is the staff post still vacant?
Yes, and it will be until a review has happened regarding the grounds maintenance contract. So we won't be filling that.
While then, right, a while then. Okay, so that will continue to grow the variance then, presumably, but the other two variances are probably now static for the year, aren't they?
Yes, that's correct, Chair. The only other thing to note regarding the staff costs is that the pay award for this financial year was agreed this week, so that's backdated to April, so it may fluctuate through from the
And
9,000.
what sort of impact is that likely to have?
You're probably looking at about 10,000 across everyone, but it should still be in a favourable position come year end. By the time
That will be,
the vacant post continues and you take the pay award off that.
okay. To what extent between now and the end of the year, essentially in September, is sort of halfway through the financial year, and the other half year, is inflation or other factors likely to impact on our outturn for the remainder of the year?
There's the potential of it. I'm certainly seeing higher increases in things like the Christmas carnival and things like that. So, and just in general, sort of materials bringing the management plan forward, there are increases, but I'm hopeful with the position that we're in, we'll be able to contain those increases within the existing budget.
See what the question was going.
May I ask a question? I heard from Phil that there's a few problems with the Christmas lights contract vis-a-vis materials, etc. Is that, how's that being resolved?
I think, don't know all of the detail regarding that, but I think it may end up being an unfortunate saving, because if we're not actually receiving the lights from the contractor, we won't be paying for them.
So
So,
an inferior set of lights, that's what it comes down to. Yeah, but don't worry, I suspect that will answer.
Which is a shame.
That happens every year.
Yeah, you know, the silly idiot didn't buy forward, didn't buy currency forward. You thought the amount he was talking of, he should have, I'm sorry, his bank didn't suggest he bought forward. £2 million worth of kit.
Yeah, we down to, get to the bottom of what happens in the practice accounts, but yes, it's an interesting point.
Maybe just, sorry, as an aside, it's worthwhile noting that in any future contract negotiations that involve a heavy element of non-UK produced product. You take my point.
I do take it,
Yeah.
yes, I do indeed. I do indeed, and in these terms, when things are fluctuating quite wildly, then that's probably more of a concern than it has been in the past. I did, for the committee's information, ask the question about power for the Christmas lights, as to whether that would have a material impact. And I think I'm right in saying we thought it might have an impact of £5,000. Is that correct?
that's correct, Chair.
Correct. So,
Offset by the fact that about a third of them, the lights aren't working.
but offset by bit depressing.
Or else there might be a power cut.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I did ask the question. Any other questions on that? I mean, I think that is, where we are for the year, and given all the uncertainties that we continue to face, if we can get through to the end of the year with, as we still hope at this stage, remaining within our original total budget net spend, I think that's not a bad result.
I would certainly concur.
Well done.
Okay, so if there are no further questions on the outturn, the recommendation, 2.1, to note the report, note the release for reserves, and note to improve my favourite word, the variance. Yeah.
Yeah, that was me.
Sorry. You put a bit out of object. I'm just going to ask you what you were good object.
These words they use.
Oh, Brian, we object to Brian. Okay, the next item is the second budget 2023-24 finance officer.
Thank you, Chair. So, notes. So, I think it's fair to say things are moving pretty fast with the budget setting for next year. There's still some key decisions to be made that will impact the budget setting that are going to be taken tonight and by CSC and council in the coming weeks. So as a result of that, I've got some suggested amended recommendations. Do you want me to read them out now or at the end? Or?
Well, you can read them out. I'm happy to blame for this.
So what the recommendation will be is to note that this second look forecast for 23-24 is based on what we know at the time of writing. Note that there are decisions that will be taken in November, CPF, CSC and council relating to investment strategies and trading on council land will impact on the 23-24 budget. And note that we are still working within the previously agreed preset increase threshold.
Yes, by way of background, as for the resolution to change, because there are some significant decisions to be taken by CSC at its meeting next week and by council potentially at the end of November. So at this stage, this second look here could be quite radically changed, by the end of November. And I think with all the other unknown factors, of which the problem is we do have a lot of unknown unknowns at the moment, that we're really not in a position to actually really nail down the budget, unfortunately, until our meeting in January. However, because these issues will arise at the meetings I've indicated, we should have a reasonable ability to follow that through. The officers, my understanding is, are continuing to work to this committee's suggestion that we keep to a 9% precept increase as guidance for them to try to work within. Quite clearly, if things arise which make that impractical, then obviously there will have to be had for full discussion at the later meetings. Having said that, we need to be cognizant of the budget, because uncertainty also means we need to have some knowledge about it. I think this paper is fairly comprehensive as it stands, but unfortunately there are quite a lot of items going on which are simply not reflected at this stage. Any questions?
I've just got one. It might need a reminder to me about it. No, you can call me Paul, it's fine. Regarding the grounds maintenance contract, John O'Connor, when does the inflation escalator get set for next year? Is it quite soon, based on a particular RPI or CPI, probably?
It's we don't get it. I think it's based on the April RPI.
Oh.
Or is it? No,
No, it's got to be in there.
no. It's good. So from April, I'm not sure. Let me double check.
Yeah, it was just a question.
Yeah.
Whether that uncertainty can be nailed down before, was it January?
Yeah.
There's two separate questions, isn't there? When does the actual inflation clause actually apply?
Yes.
And on what is it based?
Yeah, I think
Both relevant questions. Yeah. But if it applies in April, it won't be based on the April month.
no, it won't be. It'll be an only number.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a fair question.
Okay.
That's a big number in the accounts. It is indeed.
Thanks.
Are there any other questions on the second book paper?
Okay, thank you very much. Are we happy therefore to agree the new recommendations that have been read out by the finance officer? Thank you. Thank you for the comprehensive paper. The national reserves policy are reviewed.
Thank you, Chair. So there's a couple of new sections on this. So it previously was just the earmark reserve policy, but I've just expanded it just to include the general reserves and the capital receipts reserve. So those two sections are new, but you would have seen the earmark reserves section previously. And the other section of the report is to formalise the release of the 6 various earmark reserves. But have to take any questions.
In the general reserves is 500,000 or thereabouts.
That's correct.
And it has been resolved to set it around about this figure for 500,000 or 5 months expenditure some time ago. Bearing in mind inflation is now 10% and potentially rising, should we mentally or either physically now or at least in due course raise that figure to something more like 600,000?
In terms of high inflation, I think the indicators are usually 8 to 10 months rather than 5 to 6.
Really?
Yeah, well, I mean, I know all these figures for commercial companies where you switch it up
Oh,
for
yeah,
about 10, 12.
I wasn't applying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a bit
Yeah,
different.
I'd have a bit more.
It is,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a fair point as to what that number should be. We'd be in a better position to see what that would be once we set a budget in
But if inflation's
January.
running at 10%.
Yeah, but once we set the budget of January, then we know what 5 months spend is, and then we can think about what the
Like the
likely inflation is at that point. But it's a bit chicken and egg that though, because if you're saying that you want to maintain it at that, and let us say that the budget is no surplus, no deficit, then quite clearly you won't add to that. So I think it's a legitimate point. And I think something that we need to bear in mind when we set the budget, because you're right, because a nil position would result by definition in the reserves being a lower percentage of the net spend. Yes, they would. So maybe when we do the budget paper, maybe we should consider saying, well, that would then be the relative size of the general reserve. And then, the council knows that is the case.
Yeah,
The
of course, I
council
can make sure
would
that's
want,
added.
currently in these circumstances, to add that to its building in a surplus. I'm not so sure.
The other thing the reserves are for is to address any risks that might come up.
Yeah,
And when you're in an inflationary period and a difficult period, you tend to have more risks emerging than perhaps would at other times.
that's right. I think this point of the overall general reserves in position to that.
Yes, you can see who's in the swimming pool without any trunks on, or
Yeah.
water drains away. That's the analogy. Fact of life. I've seen it time and time again.
I like the swimming trunk analogy.
I've seen it.
But obviously the council had to make a decision if it wanted to build a surplus, then that obviously would increase the precept. So we need to have all those consequences in mind. I think first thing is let us see what the amount is. The other thing to bear in mind, of course, is that whatever the inflation number isn't necessarily the inflation rate that the council sees, because the underlying factors were not impacted by all the underlying factors. Food inflation being the obvious one. But also maybe other things that, affect on the contracts, for example, that could have. So.
Well, salary inflation
another
is going to
factor
start
is-
taking off now.
Another fact is collection of the council tax, when things get tough, people don't pay.
We will, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I presume we will receive a suggested collection rate as part of the tax base. The tax base, and we look at that, but unlikely we would adopt a different collection rate from the district council. But planning, I think that's unlikely.
Do you take insurance out of this? For your stuff? What sort of, can you
I
get?
doubt it. I very much doubt it's available. That sort of credit insurance, I doubt it.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure because I think the expense would be horrendous.
I guess the next get difficult, that's if insurance disappears, it becomes
Oh,
expensive.
I would suspect, I would suspect the premium's more than
Yeah.
more than you'd get back, as it were.
Councillor Coulson, we are discussing the financial reserves policy on page 25. I hope it was a good play.
Yeah, it was very good. It's very good. I'm not going to say anything else about my daughter's play on camera.
Why?
They all did brilliantly.
Why?
They're all brilliant.
Okay. Is there any other points or questions on the reserves policy?
Page 31. Allocated but not released. Profits of state plot, that figure is 200,000. But I should know where it's coming from. And is it guaranteed?
It's to be confirmed and it's to be raised by Park. So in a similar way, it'll be a similar relationship to when we built the play area in Northampton. Is it, it's the same principles used as that?
Just more or less guaranteed, isn't it? So, yeah. Not a black hole, 200,000. No.
Well, presumably we won't progress with the skate part.
You don't get the funding, you don't do the park.
I presume. There was checking.
Probably not relevant here, but I did notice in the play park, quite a few of the bits and pieces are broken.
Right, okay, I think if that's the guy, I would expect the relevant green spaces officer to be aware of that. But if you like to mention that
Yeah.
the question was
There's
raised by
certainly a couple
councillor
of bits
Turnbull.
are missing or broken or whatever.
And in the play area, yeah, I know there's been some issues, but as far as I was aware,
Yeah.
I think
There's the cost of this.
yeah, I double check. But
It's raised with the relevant green spaces officer.
And the skate park is the same as the play park, really. I think that we get some funding is from town council, some funding comes externally. And there is a lot of fundraising. I think there is a committee for it. It's coming up in the CSC meeting.
Yes, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It is, and it's done the same model as the play park was done. And therefore, I've got no reason to say that the park won't raise that money. And, you know, we know that they did it and they're aware of the process and all the rest of it. So I would admit I'm fairly confident in that. But yes, yeah, I'm sure we'd all like to see the skate park built.
When's the proposed commissioning date of the doing that?
I think it's May next year.
May.
I think it's in my head, it's May next year.
The two things were pretty indestructible, aren't they? Once they're up. Unlike the children's one.
Yeah, this one is at its end. So, yeah.
I think the timescale's about right, though I'm not entirely familiar with it. But, if you want a confirmation, we can get it, but I'm sure, I imagine that we mentioned CSC next week, I would imagine. If you'd like confirmation of it, we can get it from you. Any other questions? No, okay. Can we therefore look at the recommendation from 2.1, which is to approve the policy of Appendix A and release the reserves as shown by Appendix B, which are all projects which have now been completed. Thank you. Right. The internal audit plan.
Came at the right time.
Thank you. So the appendix attached is the report from the intended internal audit plan for this financial year. Just to confirm, there's no changes from the plan from last year, and I've got my first meeting with the internal auditors in the diary for next week. That's taking the questions.
a silly question. The fees only, what is it, £2,500? Something like that,
Yeah.
you can't do much for that. By the time you open a file, write a report, seriously, did they actually benefit very much?
I provide them with lots of information. They do lots of sample testing.
Okay. Trying to say, by the time you open a file, there's not much left to spend on the job.
I mean, these returns auditors are also audit of a similar organisation, so I assume that they give the same level of due diligence and care to each one that they do, whether we think that's thorough enough. It's up to them, yeah.
Do they do like a controls based audit, or do they do it like they've always done it?
I think they check everything. So everything in the plan they go through and check. So I suppose the main thing that takes me the time, I think, as I said, is asking for every transaction processed, and then they take a sample of that, and then we have these 6 invoices and the bank statements to prove that, and that's the majority of the work that I have to do. There are other bits and pieces as well, like checking the petty cash and everything signed off properly.
Yeah, that's a more traditional.
Yeah.
Audit, yeah.
Yeah, I understood your question, because what it sounds like it's more normally be termed a substantive based audit rather than a controls based audit. I understand what you're saying.
It's been a buzzword. I just didn't know which
An
word.
audit approach. I don't know which type of approach that they adopt. So quite happily not privy to their files. I don't wish to be. But it's about what type of approach, but it sounds like they're doing a sort of a checking kind of approach. Looking through processes. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is more
I
paperwork.
thought about that.
Yeah.
It's a decent firm, though, isn't it?
They've given us a good report every year.
It's the people who do the care.
I think that's the
That's the
external
next
auditors. This is the internal auditors. So this is SIAS, who's from Herts County and lots of other internal audit teams.
So are we happy to approve the internal audit plan 22-23? Yep. Okay. And appropriately enough, the external audit limit assurance report, which is PKF, I think.
Yes. So, thank you, Chair. So this is the final piece of the puzzle regarding the 2021-22 accounts. So the message to take away is that we've got a clean bill of health. Something that I do need to flag, though, is that as part of the year-end process, I have to put a public notice up for 30 days to say that the accounts are available for viewing. They're always available the whole time, but I have to put that notice up. Went from the 30th of June to the 10th of August. I've since been told that I'm not allowed to do that because you can't have the same day of the notice as the commencement date. So they've just flagged that in the report that technically it's not 30 days, it's 29. So I do just wanted to flag that, just
Pretty dull,
it's very I decided to draw a line under it and just take my medicine, but it was to get in before 9 o'clock and write me notice and put it on the notice board. So then be told, oh no, well, that doesn't count as a full day. I've just got to take that one as a lesson learned and it won't happen again. But I just felt I needed to flag it.
Your honesty is appreciated, I think, in my response to that. I take it, no members of the community, you're overly concerned about that particular point. Councillor Farmer.
I'm going to say, I've not noticed the residents of Hartford are getting very excited about reading this notice.
Well, I came that morning actually at 8 o'clock and I couldn't sit.
I take it we didn't receive any questions at all.
No.
So this is one which will be a more import, I think, if a member of the public asked the question, which of course they're perfectly entitled to do, on the account. Okay, if there are no further questions on the governance and accountability returns, and we take the recommendation of 2.1, the committee is asked to recommend that it's approved. Thank you. It gets better. Treasury management.
Thank you, Chair. So this year's strategy was approved by this committee in January. And there's obviously been significant changes in the market since then, hence the reason for a further review of the treasury management strategy. And even since writing this report originally, the Bank of England base rate has changed, so it's a constantly moving piece of work. So we're still using the overarching principle of low risk and low reward, but the changes are, what I'd like to do is increase the level of investments by 500,000 from 2.3 to 2.8 million. We have a deal with Lloyds that's due to expire in December, and I'd like the opportunity to be able to place that deal with Nationwide, who we've already got £1 million at the minute. The reason for that is Nationwide are offering a lot more competitive rates than Lloyds, so there's still a safe organisation to use, but they're just a bit more competitive. The other point I'd like to make is it's now worthwhile to place 500,000 that we've got into a 32-day call account with Lloyds to receive a better rate of interest than we would in the normal reserve account. Previously, the interest rates were so low it wasn't worth doing that, but it is now. And this will, the reason for this is all of the institutions want you to have at least £1 million to be able to invest with them, otherwise it's not worth their time. So that's why we've got to go down the call account route, because we haven't got another £1 million to invest. And by using the 32-day call account, it will give us the best situation with returns, as well as having the flexibility with our cash flow, just in case a large item comes up, and I'll be able to call the money back and achieve the best rates of interest.
Thank you. I think it's important. This is obviously the money that you've got from the precept you spend during the year, and therefore you're now trying to take advantage of the fact you might actually earn some money where we didn't previously. Is there any other alternatives to Nationwide as offering the same competitive rates of interest at Nationwide?
Not that I've been able to find that meet the criteria. The main organisations that we use are Lloyds, HSBC and Nationwide, and I think certainly Lloyds and for Lloyds and HSBC, I think our £1 million isn't a great deal to them, so their interest rates aren't as competitive as Nationwide.
Lots of Coventry and what's the other Building Society, Yorkshire. But they might be slightly smaller.
I think it's just trying to find that balance between being using the bigger organisations to place the money with the lower risk, but also getting the highest rate return. That's the difficult balance in that.
I think you're right. Nationwide are by far and away the biggest building society in the country. That's the only one that sort of approaches a bank. Can you just give us an indication of what the difference in the interest rates are? I couldn't just saw that.
So I tried to put it in paragraph 3.4 on page 40, but that's why they've changed since writing the report. So if we were to reinvest with Lloyds at the minute, that has increased to 2.5%, which would generate £12,500. With Nationwide, it's gone down from the 3.32 that's quoted in here to 3.15, which will give us just short of 16,000. So based on today's figures, Nationwide is still the most competitive interest rate that we'll be able to get. Things may change between now and December, but I'd just like the flexibility to be able to place that investment with Nationwide if they are the most competitive at the time.
I think it's unlikely that Nationwide will ever be below the clearing banks. I think that's unlikely simply because of the relative standing of the organisation. I'm delighted to see that you're thinking about the Treasury. I mean, it's excellent given and the changing interest rates, which means we do now have to focus on this, particularly because as we can see, it can generate quite a substantial sum for the council. And is therefore worth doing. I'm delighted you thought about, Ken, you thought about the maturity and the cash flow. Use the precept. So thank you for doing that. It's good to see there's been some proactivity on it. Any quick yes, Councillor Cook?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Just a question on what happens with the interest we earn? Does that get allocated to the capital fund, or is that just normal income?
Normal income, it will be part of the revenue budget.
Okay.
So if this all goes to plan and is approved tonight, and we can place the bills that we'd like to in December, depending on what the rates are looking like, this will be reflected in the budget come the January report. So hopefully it will reduce any budget gap there may be.
It'll offset some inflation.
Yeah.
So-
Yes, I was just going to say quite useful. About to go into cash.
Yeah.
I'm delighted you're thinking about it because it's something we clearly need to think about.
Traffic swings and roundabouts.
Yes.
No, well done.
Any other questions on the reserves policy? Thank you. Okay, can we agree the recommendation page 39, that's it, wasn't it? 39, we approve the Treasury Management Investment Strategy as set out in the appendix. Thank you. Right. Health and safety policy. I know we all laugh a bit at this, but it's actually quite important. And if something went wrong, it's very important we do have this. I think I'd like to just focus on that. I know it's a difficult subject, but it is important.
Thank you, Chair. So the report presents the annual review of the health and safety policy, the changes highlighted in the appendix. The changes proposed came as a review of the document and just looking to improve the wording or clarify things rather than make any fundamental changes to the policy. Happy to take any questions.
I have one question. Oh, no, just.
It's just a question. I know that the more sort of as the council does more sort of grounds maintenance themselves, and we sort of buy fancy pieces of equipment. Are there any I don't know, are there any other health and safety implications from, I don't know, using chainsaws and maybe we didn't before and things like that?
I don't think there's any intention as part of that to start using chainsaws or at height or anything like that. We wouldn't be insured for that. They would still need specialist contractors for that. But for any new pieces of equipment or any
It's thought about, basically.
any changes of work, we'll make sure that risk assessments are done and it's considered as part of the risk strategy as well as the health and safety strategy.
Just a couple of really short ones. Page 58, first aid. We will provide adequate first aid supplies. Makes huge sense. Is there any general definition of what adequate first aid supplies are, in the sense of, again, I'm thinking about insurance policies that we have, we don't want to find a situation where it wasn't adequate.
I've not seen anything, a specific definition. I think you've certainly got a comprehensive first aid kit downstairs, and certainly for any events that we have, it's not we have a third party contractor that's there as a first aider. So I think we're more than covered with what what we're currently doing, I'd say.
No, I'm reassured by that. I just want to check. And then I just want to just check, and this could well be just the use of language on the appendix, where we have the different cascade of responsibilities. Our nominated competent person, so I haven't seen the definition of what is a competent person. It's page 62, sorry, in the appendix of the arrangements. It gives a name, but I just wondered what role the competent person plays.
That would basically be Carl.
Well, it actually
Delegated to the town
it's
clerk.
James
James
Howard,
Allen.
which I presume is the name of the,
Oh, sorry, I'm
Yeah.
speaking of the wrong thing.
I presume it's the name of the firm.
So that's our insurance brokers.
And that's, okay, and that's what.
So it should be
Called competent person, okay,
James Hallam Limited. Sorry, just to make it.
okay.
Okay.
No, that was part of the confusion. I guess because WS had been crossed out, that this was the new insurer.
Yes, sorry.
Because it did have limited, which is fine.
Yeah.
And that's the way we refer to it, as the competent person, okay? That's where you go.
Sorry, thank you. Just having, that appendix, just overall, the final responsibility for the health and safety is also us as town councillors. Is there someone, a councillor, that effectively has a report? So for example, would we as town councillors or one of the councillors know, for example, what accidents the employees of the council have had in the last 12 months?
All that information is certainly available in the accident book. I don't know how public knowledge it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking if it's us town councillors are ultimately responsible, then it would seem sensible that there is some process for us to have some oversight of, anything that's happened in the last 12 months. Because if we don't, then we're not doing a very good job at being responsible, I suppose, are we?
That's an interesting point, actually.
I think historically, our colleague can comment, if there has been a serious accident, more than just somebody tripping or
Yeah.
not really hurting themselves, but that might be recorded in the accident book. If there's been something serious, the town clerk has told the mayor. It would go to
Yeah.
the mayor.
I know, but I suppose as town council, we'd want to know what, therefore, what is the definition of serious? There could be 3 near misses, which aren't serious, and then the 4th one.
One is serious. But there was one serious incident which was reported to council about 10 years ago. That was when the kid ran into the spiky and the things.
I'm pleased that was, well, not pleased about the event, I'm pleased it was reported, because
Oh, yeah.
clearly people need to ensure that
Yes.
there's appropriate remedial actions
It was
taken.
brought- it was, yes, the Board of Council was initially brought to the mayor and that was dealt with.
At that point, the mayor said it should be reported to the council.
Absolutely.
Because that is surely, basically the line of command would be that you would expect that if there was anything of a serious nature, day to day, it's a responsibility of the town clerk who does the council. You wouldn't expect to have a councillor reading through a point of health and safety. But overall, the final responsibility, part of that responsibility is addressed. Of course, there's the fact that it's down to councillors to agree with policies in the first place.
Councillors agree the policy, implementing it's delegated to the town clerk who delegates it through this process. Then if anything goes wrong, it's fed back through to the mayor and if necessary, the town council.
Okay.
Councillor.
I'd just like to sort of build on Councillor Cousins' point, though, that although we are responsible for setting the policy and the town clerk responsible for practice, if you took this to the private sector model with the non-exec directors, and I would think there's another responsibility to check in on effectively the performance of the town clerk in this regard. So that's not so much about him reporting that there has been an incident, but taking the point about near misses, the reason why we record near misses is to see if there's a trend, not to just breathe a sigh of relief. And I just wondered if something we could take away something to think about is that, once a year, for example, at full council, a report was given on, the number of accidents, near misses, etc., recording in the year. and we can see compared to the previous year, obviously COVID's a bit unusual, but for that as a trend.
Mhm.
And then I think we've then been allowed to do our job, that we could say that we, you know, I would imagine we'd be very comfortable with the record, and we'd say, so that the town clerk is doing a good job, and then we let it carry on with doing that for the next year.
I think he actually does that, you know.
If we get a report
If he
every
does,
year,
let's,
that's fine.
let's confirm it.
Yeah.
If he doesn't, then I think that.
I think it's just
that's a
there's
very valid
very
point, actually,
few.
because
Mhm.
I don't see otherwise how we actually say we're discharging these arrangements in the policy that we're about to agree.
Mhm.
So I think that's a very fair point. I mean, if he does technically report, which is that we don't see that there haven't been any, then but we need to just check that is the case and point that out. But I think the point raised by Councillor Cousin is a very good point about how we discharge that first line. It's
Fine, I could explain that with
it's
the town clerk.
worth thinking about. Okay. Other than that, are we happy to adopt the recommendation at 2.1 that we've noted the safety policy and we've approved it with the necessary alteration?
Thank you.
Right. We move on. B, which is the citizens' advice.
Chair. So this report presents the Q1 and Q2 information from the Citizens Advice Bureau. So it may just be worth noting that in Q1, they looked at they worked with 105 clients over 304 issues. And in Q2, it was 118 clients with 354 issues. But the reports are in the same format as they normally provide. So I hope there's no surprises, but happy to take any questions.
My only question is, you know, it is quite possible that over the next few periods, we may see the number of people calling on this service increase. I think it's entirely possible. Do they have the resources to deal with that? It's an interesting question. I don't know the answer to that. It is possible we may see an increase, it seems to me. Unfortunately. Any other comment? No. Okay, can we note the report? Yep.
Check. So as a reminder, the fees for Park Hall were increased in 2016. Then were not increased again until April of this year, and they were increased by 50 pence then. Obviously, Park Hall's a community asset with lots of hirers and it's well used, but the running costs of the building are increasing. So we're basically trying to offset that as much as we can by increasing the charges with it. And the hope is that the increase won't deter any of the existing hirers from continuing to use the facility.
I was going to say, I mean, if, for instance, hiring it for, I don't know, 3 hours or whatever, I'm looking at the decrease would be £1.50. It's not a very big increase, is it? I wouldn't have thought it would have a material effect. And I would ask, I mean, are we satisfied that in fact 50p is actually going to make the running costs of Park Hall viable? Or is it difficult balance? I know.
Yeah, it's difficult in trying to cover the costs without deterring the existing hirers and then moving on and finding other venues. So it didn't deter anyone when we put it up 50 pence last time. I know it's lower than inflation. It's only a 2% increase. but it's just trying to find that right level.
What would the alternative venues be to Park Hall?
One of the schools.
The school.
Yeah,
That's a good point.
Parkland Trust in Southampton.
The trust that's heavily used, that's.
Having said that, though, that most of the alternative ones are pretty heavily used already, so.
You've got the Salvation Army as well.
Yeah, so there is,
Yeah.
do we know our charges are compared to those properties?
When the exercise has been done in the past, we've always been on the high side, but that reflects the quality of venue that we can offer.
And also the central region.
Yes.
Yeah, we were looking to, with our scout group, hire a school, a primary school, and they charge us £50 for an hour and a half, or 2 hours maybe. But that's a school away from the centre and it's nowhere near as good, I don't think, as here. You've got the sports halls at Roundwood and St George's and stuff, they're good big halls.
Is that big?
Yeah.
Any other points on this item? Okay, are we happy to agree the recommendation stated in the paper? Thank you. I think that's the. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. Meeting is closed.
Yes.
Thank you very much.